All right, we're live.
Shazam.
Yes, just like that.
Beam me up, Scotty. I need one of those machines. I can just step in it.
They're coming, no doubt.
Yep, it's a matter of time. We got our flip phones, right? We're beyond the flip phone now.
But it worked out.
Our other, our AI-created selves will be attending, and then we can truly multitask.
There you go.
Okay, that was a tad frightening. All right, it's 6:33. We're going to begin. Here this evening is Patrick and Craig and Ben and Michael, myself, and we have a lot of presenters. Not a lot, but we have 3 presenters this evening, and they'll introduce themselves at the time. Anyone here for open forum? Double duty here at all? No. Okay. Takes care of that. The consent agenda. Then we'll move on to that.
Seems like we got.
We got everything in the kitchen sink in that. Has everyone had a chance to take a look at the meeting minutes and the bills and everything? Anything there?
Yeah.
Okay, would anyone like to make a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I would make a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Okay, second.
I'll second that.
Okay, any other questions or additions or comments? All right, all in favor? Aye. Okay, that is everybody.
Yay.
All right, we'll go on to then, right away. We're still a minute ahead. On to the review of the bond sale that went on today.
Yeah.
And it looked like it went very well,
Yeah.
based on the,
Jamie over there.
yeah, I think. Does it
there's
really
fine.
matter,
Is that okay,
Patrick?
Patrick, or will we be better?
Actually, less panning if you sit there.
Oh, okay.
All right.
All right.
It's a better shot at you from over there.
Did you need to plug in at all,
No.
or no? Okay.
Well, thank you, Mayor and council members. I'm Bruce Kimmel with Ehlers. It's nice to be with you in person for this meeting and to share the good news. So we took bids at 10 o'clock this morning on the city's behalf for the financing to finance your share of the Fifth Avenue project. And we received 5 bids, and all of them were better than what we had projected in our pre-sale report. I believe you all have a sale day report in your revised
Yep.
packets. So I'll just be referring to a few items of that report. So one of the, well, I'll get to this in a little bit, but why don't I just hit a few things. As part of this competitive sale process, we did go through a process of getting the city's really excellent S&P credit rating affirmed by S&P, and you can see that your rating of AA was affirmed as the underlying rating for this transaction, but because it is financing utility infrastructure, it was eligible for state credit enhancement through the Public Facilities Authority. And so we were able to layer the state's AAA rating on top of your AA rating to give even more creditworthiness and get more support from the market. So that worked out really well. We received, again, 5 bids on your behalf. The low bid came in at 3.44%. The high bid was at just under 3.7%. And we have been estimating around a 385. Granted, that was conservative, but the 344 was certainly ahead of the pack. And the winning bidder, which was TD Securities, clearly really wanted to buy these bonds for their investors. One thing that you may be wondering about is, if you recall, we set the sale for a bond amount of $1,840,000, and I'm here today with $1,715,000. You might be wondering, well, how can we be, dropping the bond amount so much and actually have more money to provide for the Fifth Avenue project? And that's because the winning bid had about $125,000 of reoffering premium. So basically, they really wanted higher interest rates on the face of the bonds than the actual yield. And in so doing, they paid you more than the bonds were worth. We were able to take that extra money and use it to reduce the amount of the bond issue. So we knew exactly how much the city needed for its share of Fifth Avenue, and we were able to take that premium and reduce your bond issue accordingly. One other thing I'll just mention from this cover page is you will have the ability after 2032 or any date thereafter to call the bonds or refinance if market rates can allow for that. And so that will be at your sole discretion. Otherwise, this debt service is fixed for the next 15 years. All right. So I'll go on to the bid tabulation. And I just wanted to show you the TD bid at the top of the page, because this is what really demonstrates that reoffering premium. You might see that the coupon rates on these bonds are all 4 and 5%, but the yields range from a low of 2.75 up to 3.63%. And so that's really the net actual borrowing cost for the city on these bonds, is in that 2 to 3% range. And then you can see the second place bid from Baird was about 13 basis points or 0.13% higher. So this is the value of competitive bidding, right? You don't know who's going to be the most aggressive until you put it out there and invite the national marketplace to bid on the city's bonds. Then finally, I won't take a whole lot extra time, but we did include the final debt service numbers, including the sources and uses of funds, and then the debt service schedules. You can see that debt service will average roughly $155,000 to $160,000 per year. That's about $5,000 less per year than what we had estimated. So not a huge difference, but every bit helps, and that's $5,000 a year less that your utility funds will have to pony up for debt service. And then finally, we did include the rating report. I'd be happy to take any questions about this. That rating affirmation was pretty straightforward. You have a great team in Mike and Kim in terms of describing what the city has been doing and your financial management, and there really were no even yellow flags that got in the way of an affirmation of the city's AA rating, which for a city of your size and your geographic remoteness is really, again, an attribute or a testament to your staff, but also your decisions as elected officials and your financial management. So congratulations on that.
Oh, yeah.
Thanks, Kim.
Yeah.
So why don't I stop there and ask if you have any questions about the bond sale, the results we got today, or anything else, and then if we're good to go, then I would ask you to take up the award resolution awarding the bonds to TD Securities.
Does anyone have any questions? There's silence.
Well, I was just excited about the sale when I saw that number, and then.
Yeah,
Where
it
that
was
was
nice
like-
to know it on a premium like that.
I mean, I'm pretty blind and ignorant about this stuff, but it looked good from what I could see, what I can understand.
Yeah. They either like to visit here or they're just interested in our finances. Either way, sometimes we do okay. All right,
So-
here's the resolution. Okay, with that then, would anyone like to make a motion for resolution, was it 2023? Oh, it's probably on
Dash
here.
15, it says?
15, there we
That's what
go.
I got.
It's blank.
I would make that motion, for sure.
All right, anyone want to second that?
I'll second it.
Okay. Any further questions, discussions?
All right.
Okay.
Well, the only question probably can't be answered today, I guess, but, no, I mean, this is for the Fifth Street project, but we don't
Right.
know about any possible overruns or change orders or things like that, so I'm assuming we're gonna be probably paying those out of the utility fund or something like that. I mean, that's my guess. We're not
Well, we've
gonna,
made several $100,000 in payments already.
right.
Right. that
I
are
mean,
not
we've already
bond.
made payments
Right.
towards the projects
Right.
already, so we're just getting that portion of that money
Back.
back, so, yeah, right.
That was just because
So
we had to
that's my
pay.
yeah,
before.
we're bonding for this amount, and that's gonna be what we're doing for this particular project, not
Yeah.
anymore, yeah.
Yeah, that is my understanding.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep,
Looks good.
Okay,
all right.
thank you for your hard work putting that together, it's kinda nice. Thank you. Appreciate it.
All right.
So we need a vote.
Yes, thank you.
I'll vote.
Okay, that's all we need. We got a vote.
Sidetracked to something else. Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, aye. We're all set then.
All right.
Unanimous.
Great.
Thank you.
Very
Thank
good.
you. Yeah,
Yes.
absolutely.
Appreciate
And
it.
I know you're working on a possible new city hall and liquor store, and I'm sure we'll be talking about that at some point too. So
I'm sure we will.
look forward to it. Thank you very
Good.
much.
Yeah,
Great.
thank you.
Yeah.
We'll
Thank
try
you.
to not make it November.
Is you- oh,
I mean, unless you like
You know
that
what?
sort of thing, in which case.
Yeah.
I don't mind driving in the snow. I really don't. So, and I like to ski up at Loose or down at Loose End. So
Either way,
we
you're
can make
good.
that work.
Okay, very
All right,
good.
thank you.
Thanks
Yeah,
for
appreciate
coming.
that.
Thank you.
All right. Well, and Mike wasn't here. We can't give Mike an in-person thank you, but he deserves one too for that. All right, well, moving on to the library budget.
The teeny tiny, little itty bitty.
And as I recall, with the library budget, which is why you are in need of getting to the county, is that we're beyond the 5%, right? Which requires both parties'
Right.
approval. Do I have that right?
Yes, when we go above 5%, both have to approve.
Right.
All right, so that's just a summary, because I noticed your timeline, you know, that you
Yeah.
wanted to get to both groups, so.
Right.
and
And that
you-
is the trick, that we don't have our final numbers, but
Yeah, it's, yeah. It's close
nothing
to
new there.
done.
Yeah.
All righty. Would you two both like to introduce yourselves, and then you may go ahead and give your little
I am
presentation?
Reverend Ennell Limpier. I serve on the Library Board of Trustees and was just reappointed to my position last year, so I'm looking forward to continuing to be of service.
And I'm Amanda St. John, I'm the library director.
All right. Did you have anything in particular you wanted to let us know about, or did you just want be here for questions?
Well,
What would you
we
take?
have to make one little correction.
Okay.
2 lines below 31, it says the 2023 budget. It should be,
Oh.
that should be the 2024 budget.
Oh, right.
Sure.
Right.
And I think that's the only correction to be made on that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Most of this is tied up in staff and health insurance as we can. The 4% increase in wages and salaries, that was negotiated by the unions. I listened to what happened last year, and they projected a 30% increase in the health insurance, and that was readjusted to 10 later. And as we know, we don't get those numbers until like November, so we really don't know what it's going to be, but we're projecting again that it'll be about 10% increase, and then some of the extra salary increase is due to the longevity of people who have worked there, and so they get step raises, yep. And within the budget itself for operation, outside of that, it's only a $2,500 increase on this, which is, you know, way less, just a couple of percentage points. So
Yeah.
we hope that we can continue to serve and at the current service levels and meet the community needs. And
Yeah, I think one of the things that what I saw in the budget was that, you know, really, the things that we have control over, it's $2,500, that's what we have control over. Everything else is outside of the control of the library and the city. You know, it's already been negotiated, and so it's kind of what it is.
Well, and
just ask everybody to keep their fingers crossed after the pandemic and the flood and the recarpeting and the furnace. I think we should be good to go for a while. Knock on wood.
well, we highlighted your report in our last meeting, just because it was interesting, some of the different uses and people coming in the door. So it was nice to see all that. And I've been in out for a couple this past week, and lots of people doing
Yeah.
a variety of things. I saw certain people Craig knows, and they're doing work, and families and people reading, and yeah, it's like lots of.
Well-used library.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then summer's certainly increased anyways, right?
Yeah,
No matter
sure.
what.
We got a shout out from Java to say, because we're so busy in Java, can you please go over to the library? If you're gonna be using your table for more than an hour.
There you go.
My son-in-law got kicked out of Java.
That's why I saw him there.
Well, he was working, he needs to.
Yeah. I thought he needed
I have a lot
quiet.
of, whatever, I'll keep my mouth shut.
Thought maybe it was too chaotic at your house, you needed quiet.
Well, no, it's just, thank you for the library. It's a
Yeah,
good place to
right.
go.
I mean, you can still work outside and drink your coffee. Wi-Fi is usually good.
Anyway.
Anyone else have some questions or things you
Yeah.
want to look at?
So, right now, the library, you guys are sitting on about, I don't know, $350,000 in reserve money in the restricted fund. Are there any of these expenses that you have budgeted for the proposal, can they be taken from that restricted fund? What are the limitations of that fund? Why are we keeping such a healthy fund balance in that restricted fund account? Just overall questions I have. I know you like to keep about 6 months in operating expenses, just like everybody else, because of the way taxes work. And that's fine. You guys have about that now in cash. And that's not in the restricted fund. So my question is, can some of these line items be taken from this restricted fund and then reduce our levy? I want to reduce the levy anywhere we can, because we know we just did a bond sale that's going to increase the levy. We have a city hall and liquor store that's going to do that. We have a city wastewater facility that's going to surely add to some burden. So
Yeah.
if we can use some of the money that's sitting there, we should look to that first.
I heard our president, Dave Mills, talk about this a little bit, and he said that for the reserve funds, generally, you like to have that 6-month cushion, and then also have some money for projects and single-use events. If we start using that for just daily operating expenses, then in government, it's hard to get that back into the budget, because they said, oh, you have enough, until it whittles down. It's a valid concern. The increase for the city is 15,000, nothing to sneeze at, but it's not a huge increase for the city, considering that, our budget went from, at the end of 2020, $18,500 for health insurance, up to $65,000. So
That's
if there was a fund for health insurance, that's what we would love to tap into. That's what's causing the big raise here.
Yeah, and I hear what you're saying, Ben, but these are, I mean, for the most part, these are operating expenses.
Yeah.
It's not, these aren't one-time things, and we'd be taking out of monies that may or may not get replenished.
But you're asking about a restricted fund.
Yeah, what is that used for, right? Like, what are we, I know, well, maybe Kim, you probably know best what that fund can be used for and what it can't be.
Yeah.
And then the endowments, right? I mean, how are those funded? I mean, imagine there are grants that show up, or there's inheritance,
there's money
walk
given.
us through some of that, if you don't mind, Kim.
There's endowments, yeah.
Yeah, so the endowments are often from a will, and most of them say they need to be used for something other than your ordinary operating expenses.
And are those, is that in the restricted fund? Is that what's in there?
Right.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. Okay, and what was the other question, Ben?
No, I think, okay, so that,
So some of the restricted fund was used for the $20,000 deductible for flooding, the air source heat pump that was added in the library
Right.
this year. Sometimes for furniture or travel and training that wasn't budgeted.
Capital outlay in the 215 for sure.
Okay.
And also, Ben, to speak to your question about some things that might be able to come out of there, we do not have a programming budget in our operational budget. Programming dollars do come from some of the funds we receive directly from Arrowhead Library System and also from support from the 215 and donations to the library.
That was my only question.
Craig, you're doing math.
So just to confirm then, Kim,
Yeah.
if we look at restricted funds, it's completely endowments or bequests? Or are there
No,
other things in
there are-
there that I missed that you didn't, that I not?
Well, endowments and other donations and
Donations.
contributions.
Okay.
Okay.
But totally from that angle.
So was there, I'm just looking at the first two lines, line 1 and 2, from last year to this year. Was there some shift in salaries between the full and part-time? Because last year we were budgeting with, was that what was
Oh,
that,
that's right.
8%?
Yep. So we budgeted for 2 full-time people, however, we operated without 2 full-time people for
Okay.
quite a while. Maybe less
So I mean,
than that
the
amount.
full-time changed quite a bit compared to last year and this year.
That's,
But then the part-time went the other direction, so you're basically about a $9,000 increase for the 2023 to 2024 for full-time, part-time. That's kind of what I'm calculating. So what I'm
Right.
looking at
Putting
is-
them together.
Is that like a 4%? I don't know, I'm saying.
Right. Because as Kim said, we didn't operate with the full-time people and we ended up with more part-time. And now you're going to go back to the plan or whatever of having less part-time and more full-time in the 2024 budget? Is that how I'm hearing this based on what Kim said?
I mean, this is, yeah, this
This
is projected.
projection
So
accounts
11.
for 3 full-time positions. That's also reflected in the 2023 line. When we, in 2022, for example, we were operating with a library director and a full-time assistant library director. And in 2023, that moved to having the 2 full-time library and 1 positions and no assistant library director. One of the values that provides is instead of having duplication of supervision, we have more staff on the floor helping with programming. It also makes the jobs more accessible to local people, as well as the benefits packages to make the position desirable and hopefully to retain our staff.
So in 2024, you're looking to 4 full-time positions then? Is that, the way I'm reading,
No.
177,000?
No.
3?
It would be 3. It would be a library director and 2 full-time librarian ones, as is shown in the 2023 column.
But they just weren't there all,
Yeah.
that's the
Yeah.
difference, is they just
Yeah.
weren't there for a full year. It was the plan,
But they weren't hired.
but they
so
weren't there for all of 2023. So the dollars look less.
Well, what was budgeted was $274,000.
Right, but even
And then in
what-
2024, what's budgeted is $283,000.
But even what's been spent so far, I guess, realizing this is just through a third of the year when this report was generated, but only 18% of the full-time salary funds had been administered. So it's over budgeted.
That's because we did, there wasn't a person hired for one of those positions.
For last year? I mean,
Yeah,
for
for-
2023?
Yeah, coming into 2023, so once that, and I think we are still searching for that position, so once that position is filled.
Oh, this may help. The column for 2023, does this work or not, shows, like whether we've had the person here or not. Kim, help me if I'm wrong. Whether we've had the person or not would show up in 2023 year-to-date, that column. 2023 column would show how much it would cost to have this for the full year. This was the request that we're asking to fill in 2023. So that should be the full amount.
Oh, that will be the full
But also
amount.
there was a 30%
Gotcha.
increase in insurance at first, and
Well,
this
it's a
should
re-
reflect 10%.
Yeah.
Is
We
Request.
kept 30 in there, and that's why the.
Yeah, we don't have the year-to-date.
I'm not sure if that's solving the problem, but that's another piece of information that might be
So-
factoring in.
So Kim, when I'm looking at that 2023 line, that 121, that would be for the entire year, or the estimated, what it would be for
Right.
the entire year. Okay,
Okay, that's different
Got
than
it.
I thought.
that makes
Okay.
sense. Okay.
But you can see how.
Well, it's kinda hard
from
to-
23 to 24 is clearly, if no additional changes are taking place, that's quite a bit more than 4%. Right? In full-time.
Yeah, that's different than the way I read it, too.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because we've never had 3 full-time people.
Okay.
And that's why the part-time goes down.
Right.
Okay.
So Craig, you already did the math. So between those two
Well, yeah,
columns-
the problem is I'm looking at the request for 2023, and then I'm looking at the 2024 proposal. So obviously, the year-to-date numbers for 2023 aren't finalized yet, so, I mean, we don't,
That's through April, right?
yeah, the request. So if you compare if you compare the request of 2023 to the proposal of 2024, it's like a $5,000 difference. Some numbers switched between full-time and part-time,
Gotcha.
which skewed the
And that's,
total amount.
okay,
That's, yeah.
got it.
But what the actual numbers are gonna end up, it's hard to tell right now because we're, you know,
Right.
it's hard to do a budget. I mean, you're halfway through the year, sort of, I guess. I mean, you can kind of,
Right, and again, it's what we have with what we know right now. And we'll, right, because we have to get it to the county. It's kind of,
so does this work, let me get this right. Over 5%, so we're involved.
Yes.
If your request is, does this work like the city budget? When we set a,
We
when we
discuss
set a
it,
levy, we can't go up, but we can go down at a certain date. I mean, how, can we adjust? Is there any, as these numbers come in further into the year?
but the deal is once it's 5%, otherwise the county just has to go along with whatever we decide to
whatever
do.
we decide
But
to
now
do.
that we're above 5%, they have to go in front of the county and get their agreement. So timing-wise, they need to get in front of the county now, and then we still have to come back and do the final,
yeah, so there's another swipe.
time to look at this. But we need to get something that they can go then to the county
Okay.
on. But it's not the final say of everything.
And that's right, Kim, right? Like, we'll be coming, that'll be coming back around. Okay.
Yeah, I just like to see an updated total based on where they're at through this year, because I mean.
You mean beyond the April?
Through April.
Yeah, right, yeah.
Yeah.
That's
April,
not-
May, June, July, we've got.
Yep.
So what
know,
will we have, how many, what part of this year will we have to look at? Like, would it be through July or August when we look at it next?
September is the third quarter.
Well, it usually takes me a couple weeks after the month is ended to get those numbers in there.
Okay. All right, so we're looking at,
We could have August numbers,
so we could have August, we could look at it second.
maybe, yeah.
In
At least
September.
half a year, right?
Yep. That would be good.
So our next step then is to approve this draft library budget. So it's not like the final, so that they can go in
Yeah.
front of the county.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm okay with the draft.
Or we could whittle $5 or $6 grand off, and then we don't have to bother the county.
Yeah, we'd have to get it down by what, 1.8%, right? But then if for any reason that's not effective, then we're back again, so. I guess it's kind of like Craig said, it's better to go this direction, go down then, and have the
Sure.
county.
Well, they do come back before other department heads for their budget, correct? For their budget request for 2024. When does that happen?
It's right now.
Oh, yeah, well, don't they come back again?
What, the library?
Yeah.
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 They'll be.
Because I'm looking at, we did this July, here's the old one, sorry. We did this June 29th of 2022 is when we did the, last time we did this. Was in June.
And then you say it again in the fall?
Well, I don't,
So what is your timeline with the county, Amanda?
yeah.
We need to get this budget to the county by August 16th. That's the drop dead date, so just ahead of that, in advance of the preliminary levies. And I've never come back
The county.
twice to talk
No.
to city council, but
No.
that doesn't mean that Mike hasn't represented that in the larger discussions.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I think now that you say it like that, I think that is what happened, is that he brought us the final
Right,
after it went to the county.
yeah. Not, so it wasn't really about, like, you in particular,
Right.
but this will not be the only time we will talk about the budget for the library.
Correct. Yes, right.
But I
Yep.
just want to give you ample time to get in front of the county. And
So
maybe they have
August-
other questions.
August 16th would allow you to look at it again at the end of July council meeting, if you'd rather do that.
Well, but
But the
I
numbers
thought
aren't
you
gonna
were,
change, so, I mean, we won't have it updated.
I thought Kim said she could get
Oh,
us
okay.
the
mean,
year-to-date
well,
a
she
little
could
bit
show-
closer.
She could get a
June.
She
Yeah,
can show us
at
year-to-date
least June and
totals,
July.
but the proposal, I mean, that's
Um,
whatever.
Which, but when, I thought you had an earlier date to meet, oh, it does say, I'm sorry, it does say mid-August. So you weren't going to meet at a county meeting any sooner than mid-August?
I'm required to deliver the budget to them so that they can review it by that date. And then I think they actually start talking about it closer to September. I'm not
Yeah,
sure
I
what their
think that they
process
put
is.
that in there.
But my agreement is to get it there by mid-August.
Okay, I'm sorry. I thought you wanted to get in front of them sooner with us to look at, and then we'd all be talking about it again. All right, I got it. It does reframe the... So would you, since we do have into August, would you like to have Kim have something ready for the end of July?
You get another month?
Well, I mean, it's up to you guys. I mean, you know,
Like the
I think I
year-to-date,
just
right?
maybe just have some questions about, because I'm still a little confused about this, about the salary stuff and like how that, the number of people, the number of staff, what the goal,
Okay.
you know, did we budget for 3 and not have 3? And then,
Mhm.
or didn't we do that? Or like, what is,
Okay.
what happens then,
I mean-
right? Like where does the money go?
So a better breakdown, like in more detail about how that went, sure.
I think I need a little bit more
Just
on
so we
that.
get Kim prepped.
Even
for-
a couple more months of data would be
Okay.
maybe helpful.
But so, and just so we're clear, so you're really curious about those full-time, part-time, how many people, those dollars? That's the
Yeah,
focus.
just,
Okay.
is that an accurate request, right? Is
Okay.
that,
And just comparison as we're shifting
Mm-hmm.
staffing, you know, from up to 3 and all that. Okay, so kind of comparison over year, not years and years, but the last year or so.
Okay.
And then, could we get through the end of June for the next meeting, Kim, for year-to-date?
Yeah.
Would that be realistic?
Yes.
Okay,
Okay.
so we'll do
okay?
year-to-date.
I hate to
No, that's
kick it
fine.
down the road, but
No,
No, that's fine.
I guess we have more time than I realized, because
Okay.
I thought that she needed to get, had a sooner meeting.
Right. I mean, if we
And-
have till, if we get it to them by the end of this month,
Yeah,
that's
then
plenty of time. for
that
them
should
to
be
do their
good.
thing.
okay.
And then if there's something else, it's Kim we're asking, right? So I
Right.
assume.
Right.
So if it doesn't have to be just what you think tonight, if there's something else, you know, we could get it to her to question-wise. Just if you want to understand a line item a little bit better or whatever. Okay. And then we would still have something for you then by the end of the month, and that would still fit your stuff.
Yep.
Are we
sounds
good?
fine. Sounds great.
Okay.
So we'll come back to that in a couple weeks.
Do you want to ask anything more
Well,
then before we're?
well, and I can talk, I can actually just talk with Kim about it. Like, I just had a little bit more question on that restricted fund, you know, and
Yeah.
what is, because when you say, well, we don't like to use it for operating expenses.
Well, that was
that's all
brought
we
up-
have.
No,
You know, like this is all operating expense.
That was
So,
brought up last year at the
You know,
meeting.
so I'm confused about
It
what.
it was
Well,
brought up
and
last
that's-
year at the meeting. Somebody had asked
Yeah.
Dave about,
About using the dollars.
at what point do you feel you need to maybe use some of that money for some things? And he just said, well, we don't want to do that right now. So, I mean, we didn't get an exact if you can or not, or where the money can be spent, where it can be used, if it can be used to offset some of these things, and I don't know. But I'm just looking at last year's,
But the reserve isn't the same as the restricted.
right, there's two different
Oh,
funds.
Right, so we have to be
gotcha,
clear.
gotcha.
I mean, restricted does have,
Two separate funds.
right,
Correct.
and that's very typical of endowments and bequests, that they are said very specifically what you may spend the
Yeah,
money I'm giving
yeah.
you for.
Correct.
Yeah,
And what you
that makes
can't.
sense.
Sure.
But the
Yeah.
reserve, just so we're using the right language.
Yes.
You're wondering
So,
still, is there some
Your question
leeway?
is about the reserve.
Yeah, really, right?
Well, it could be about both,
I
'cause
do think it's a little bit about both.
there
but-
might be, yeah.
Because I understand this 6 months, and I don't want anybody to run lean, right? Like, I want you to provide the services, and I want that. But understanding, yeah, it's $15,000, but it's $15,000. And so, that's taxpayer money, right? We have a group of people who have given their money for the library, and we're not using it. Instead, we're using, so that's just the question I just want to get.
Well, just remember, if they do give the money, they are probably using it, but they have very specific things they have to use it for.
Yeah, and
But
maybe,
to-
maybe like a 3 or 4 year breakdown of like, hey, how has that been spent? That would be helpful,
Sure.
right?
Okay,
See, there's
So we
another
can
good
look
one.
at, hey,
Yeah,
here's,
should be ready.
here's how that money has been allocated,
Mhm.
and that way we can know.
Yeah, that's a good idea. All right,
Okay.
because that kind of gets confusing, you know,
Does.
reserve fund versus restricted or whatever.
Yeah.
Okay, well, and if there's anything else, it's not like it has to, you know, we can still ask
Yeah.
before. All right, is that everything then on this for this evening?
Yeah,
Are we
I
good?
think so, yeah.
Yes, we'll
All
just.
right.
Yeah.
Come
Thank
back.
you both very
Thank
much.
you very much, yeah.
Yep, thank you.
Thanks, Kim.
Thank you.
That's always good because there's so many numbers of so many departments and
It's my
it's hard
first
to
time
get.
going through budgets, so I'd like to, I just
Well-
want to know about it a little bit.
Well, and all of us, you know, you're over here, these are lots of numbers, and you go over to the public utilities and just all around, you know, the different departments. Park
Yeah,
and
no,
it's a lot. All right, that was very good. It's time for the audit report, and I believe that's, David with us? No, that's the city attorney, I'm sorry. Who is
Devin.
with us? Pardon?
Devin.
Devin.
Oh, there he is.
There you go.
Hello. It's my turn.
Yeah,
You're up.
Thanks for having me. And well, first I just want to start out by commending you on getting all the numbers and your conversation about a budget. And because I'm not sure every city council has quite in-depth conversations about a budget, and it's as I was prepping for this, it's very apparent that you guys are fiscally responsible about your financial statements. And you'll see as I go through this, I don't really have a whole lot of comments or improvements. I'm just gonna go through the financial statements and give my quick 2 cents. But other than that, I mean, it looks pretty good. I'll share my screen if it's not. If it's not big enough, please let me know. And I'll be zooming in and out from this. So, first I'm going to start off on page 2. You can either follow along with me on the screen, or I know Kim said she handed out the bound copies. But on page 2, this is the independent auditor's report. It's the part I highlighted here is our opinion paragraph. It doesn't give an opinion on the financial health of the city. It gives an opinion that the financial statements are prepared in accordance with GAAP. It's an unmodified opinion, so it's the highest opinion that you can get. But it's strictly just saying that the financial statements are reported in accordance with GAAP. I'm going to fly through this management discussion and analysis. This whole section between pages 5 and 12, I believe, is just a recap of the year and of the government-wide financial statements, how the funds did during the year, increases and decreases. There's a section about capital assets and outstanding debt. So that can be just read on your own time. I don't want to spend any time on that. Next is page 13. So this, as you see, I wrote in red on some of these, if you want to jot down notes for reference in the future. But this is the government-wide financial statement. It's basically the government as a whole, or your city as a whole. And it's broken out into 2 account types, which are 2 activities, which is governmental and business type. This page 13 is similar to a balance sheet for like a business. The next page is similar to an income statement. This is the first page, as you see in your binder. They're facing each other, so there's actually 2 pages to this report. But this is like the income statement for the city as a whole. Next, on page 16, are the governmental funds. These governmental funds are reported using a current financial resources measurement focus and a modified accrual basis of accounting, which is a little bit different than how the government-wide financial statements are prepared. One thing that I look at is the fund balance, just to see how well or how healthy financially a city is. We'll oftentimes look at this unassigned fund balance in the general fund, and at least 40% of the expected general fund expenditures, which in 2022 was approximately 2.5 million. So 40% of that's roughly $1 million. So, and you have about 4.2 million
Hey, Devin.
as unassigned. And that unassigned fund balance just means that it's basically free, or not free, like open
Devin?
cap can be
Devin?
spent for what anything.
Can
Yes,
I get you to increase, I think you're like
Oh.
54% or whatever?
Absolutely, yeah.
Thank you. Oh, there we go.
yeah,
Thanks.
so this was the factor that I was looking at in the unassigned fund balances of the governmental funds, well, specifically the general fund.
Page 16, okay.
I will, maybe I'll zoom in and out as I go, so you can kind of get the page number and a full shot. So this is page 17. As I previously mentioned, the governmental funds are reported on a different measurement focus and different basis of the fund. So all this reconciliation is doing is reconciling from page 16 and page 13, and I highlighted over here kind of the fund balances to the net position on each. Some of the differences are like in the governmental funds financial statements, we don't report capital assets, we don't report long-term liabilities on those balance sheets, but then on the government-wide statements we do. So as you can see, these are all the different reconciling items that are in there, but those are primarily the big 2, are capital assets and long-term debt. Then on page 18, this is the statement of revenues and expenditures and changes in fund balance of the governmental funds. Still using that same measurement focus, so there's no depreciation calculated in here. Debt payments are recorded when they're paid, so there's like an expenditure for principal and debt service charges. One key factor that I'll look at when trying to determine how the funds did throughout the year is this net change in fund balance line that I highlighted. General fund increased their fund balance by about $319,000, and this negative 1.5 million. It's somewhat deceiving because the city issued debt last year to refund some bonds. So this fund balance actually increased significantly last year, and then this year when we paid off the other bonds, it decreased. So that's really not even something to worry about. Then on page 19, this is our reconciliation between the income statement and the income statement of the governmental funds, fund financial statements, and how they're reported upfront as using that economic resources measurement focus. And again, I highlighted the numbers where you can find those on pages, when you compare page like 18 to page 14 and 15. Then on page 20, these are the enterprise funds. It's basically the balance sheet of the proprietary or enterprise funds. And these are reported on the same measurement focus and basis that the government-wide financial statement are. So there's no reconciliation for these. I won't spend any time on the balance sheet, but I do want to point out a couple things on the statement of revenues and expenditures and changes in net position. Typically, when we look at enterprise funds, this operating income line is the first thing that we want to look at, because all enterprise funds should be self-sufficient and you shouldn't be tapping into the general fund levy or borrowing money from many other funds. They should be generating enough revenue by themselves to cover operating expenses, which on this operating income line, you can see that obviously all of them have. So you know your rates are pretty good. Well, at least enough to cover your operating expenses, and that includes depreciation. A lot of the other cities I go to, they don't calculate in the depreciation, so they're always running, well, not always, but a lot of times running an operating loss. But like the city looks healthy there, and then even the change in net position, because you have a lot of non-operating revenue and expenses, and still the change in net position, which is like equity. If you're a business, you're putting some in your pocket for reserves in the future, which all this is fiscally responsible in my opinion, and it looks pretty good as far as this goes.
Is the rec park not included in enterprise funds?
Right.
Recreation, no, that's in the governmental funds. So yeah, it's just liquor, electric, water, sewer. Are you thinking like the campground?
Yes.
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah,
Golf course.
typically all campgrounds are governmental funds, although a lot of them are run kind of like an enterprise fund. But yeah, that's part of the governmental funds. Then, what page is this? Page 22 is the statement of cash flows. Just one line item that I'll point out on this statement that I would look at when I'm determining whether a city is having cash flow issues, is this net increase and decrease in cash. And I mean, you have plenty of cash, and yeah, I mean, this fund went down, but I wouldn't call it significant in electrical funds. So a lot of times they might bring out something that's causing you cash flow troubles. But everything looks good in Grand Marais. So the notes to the financial statements, I'm just gonna fly through these. Feel free to read through them and reach out to me if you have any questions. But really, all these pages will just go into further detail about everything that's in the financial statements themselves. Page 56 is the general fund budget to actual. I highlighted some numbers that I would typically look at here to see how the city fared when compared to its budget. These two line items, make it bigger so you can see. Revenues, basically your actual was over your budgeted amounts, which you have a surplus of revenues, which is good, and your expenditures came in under budget. So you had a positive variance there, which is good and resulted in positive net change for fund balance. That's just kind of a recap, but I can tell based on your guys' conversation about the library, you're very well versed on looking at budgets and making fiscally responsible decisions. Then I'm going to skip all over the supplementary information. A lot of that stuff, those charts in the back, are required information that we have to put in the financial statements for PRA and some of those pensions. It's a lot of information that I don't really see as relevant. Page 67, I just threw on here, these are the non-major governmental funds. So on page 16, there's a total column and it just has all the governmental or non-major governmental funds lumped together. And this is just a detail of that. So here's the four that were reported as non-major. I'm not going to spend any time on the balance sheet. And then this is combining statement of revenues, expenditures, and changes in fund balance. This total column would be reported on page 18. And I know, well, yeah, you guys are talking about the library, and that was the only thing that I was going to bring up is that there was, in 2022, there was a deficit there. But obviously, you guys are discussing that. Next, I believe, page 69, 70, and 71 is just more detailed, the general fund, and it breaks out the line items. We typically use that for like helping with the state report, but that's just for more detail if you'd like to look at it. But then page 76, these are two findings that we have, and I would say 90% of our audits. Segregation of duties we have in a lot of our smaller governments because there's limited office staff. Lack of control over financial reporting. It's basically because we put this report together and you guys don't have somebody that puts together the report. So you're relying on us to put together this report. Then lastly is the management letter. We have one management point, which that I highlighted here, and it's it had to do with the electrical enterprise fund. That some of the inventory items, it had to do a lot with COVID, I believe, because like transformers with the supply chain disruptions, a lot of electrical components skyrocketed in price, which I think transformers skyrocketed in price, so they were really variable. And the way inventory is calculated is you pick a number, like a cost for a transformer, and they use that on that inventory, and it seemed really inflated because it was being purchased at a higher price, and being how transformers fluctuated so much in cost during the year, that inflated price made things look wonky due to what they were priced at inventory compared to what the city actually purchased them for. Upon further review, me and Kim looked at it, we came to an agreement on, we saw what was happening obviously, and that was changed. But just with the volatility of the cost of things, that's something to keep in mind for the future, is if costs start changing, is just to make sure that we're updating the unit cost of those inventory items regularly. And like I said, it's it's a great audit to work on because I think the council and Kim and Mike are all really fiscally responsible. And I know as auditors, we greatly appreciate it. So, does anybody have any questions? I can revisit anything in the report if you like.
Anyone?
I don't have any questions, no.
Craig? Appear not this evening. I think,
Thank you.
we're all set. Thanks so much for your time.
Thanks, Evan.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Thank you for having me.
Alrighty,
Thanks.
excellent. Yes. And we'll be looking at, all this again really shortly. When we budget away. So if things pop, we'll have time to look at it. Okay. Depending how you view it, on to more fun things. Cannabis.
Cannabis.
So last meeting, I mentioned the two things we should potentially look at taking action on. And one of those is tonight's item, an ordinance. And then the other one will be coming up later to talk about if we want to permission, just like we do for events now, liquor, if we also want to permission cannabis. And those are also their own events in and of themselves commonly, as opposed to an event for which you just happen to be selling liquor, like North House's Unplugged or Fisherman's Picnic or whatever.
Right.
Sometimes they have an event just for the purpose of cannabis, which I think it was Bent Paddle did June 30th. They just got it before the July 1st date and had their event because
Right.
they
I knew.
manufacture some edibles products. So they had their event. But tonight, it's just about an ordinance, and we made, it was some interesting discoveries for me at that, and hang on just a sec, because I'm going to let me just share my entire screen. Here's going to ask me again. Okay. So, the last time it was, starting August 1st, we're allowed now by the state to have a petty misdemeanor for use in public places. And it would be very similar to what you might expect for liquor as well. And then they mentioned, and I had this up on the screen last time, if it's in a private residence or private property or a permissioned event, if we did license events,
Right.
then this would exclude that. And August 1st ties in really nicely with Fisherman's Picnic. And I'm assuming a lot of enthusiasm starting August 1st. So I thought it was important that we talk about this and decide what we want to do and be ready for August, if it should become part of the fun. And with that, Mike pointed out that there are some differences not differences, but we'd have to think through a few more items with that. And Patrick, you know what, maybe I should just quit sharing my screen because it'd be nice if you put that map up.
Okay.
First of all, what areas would we want to, can you take control or do I have to hit a?
You'll have to leave presenting.
I'll just leave the page, that's okay. Is that good?
Yeah.
Okay. First of all, we'd have to decide what areas of the city, if we want to do this, we would want to have the ordinance cover. and we need to show you what the city already does and doesn't cover for liquor, assuming we want to be somewhat universal on this. And the city has a misdemeanor, and we were thinking it would be, trying to keep it easy for the sheriff, we'd want them to be uniform, maybe not, whatever you guys want to talk about, but so that liquor would go down to a petty misdemeanor if we decided to be keep it the same. So that's where we went. And David, who is filling in for Chris Hood tonight, helped draft this ordinance, so questions or anything, he's there to help us through this. But the first piece, I thought I asked Patrick to have the map, because I'm not super good about the zoning areas. Right now, our liquor ordinance for no public consumption is that yellow band of H61.
Huh.
The burgundy part that's downtown, and then that blue MU. I think I have them all in here.
Okay.
It's in the C1. So I think that covers it all. Oh, and C1. Oh, and then C1,
CI.
CI.
that, okay.
And now actually it's called HMU.
That's right.
It's called what?
Highway mixed use.
Oh,
The C-
okay.
CI.
Right, but
So all the way across. It does not include the park. And it does not include our downtown parks or Artist Point or around the harbor, which is kind of confusing because that one piece makes it look like it does, the DW. So, which of these would you guys like to talk about, locations or even an interest in regulating? I guess I should start. Do you guys have an interest in adding this in at all?
I think it should be, yeah, it should be added in.
yeah, I think it makes sense to make it, like you said, make it easier to enforce, having it similar to the, open bottle or whatever.
Okay.
Could make sense.
What do you think, Craig?
Yeah, I'm just reading this.
Okay.
Area to regulate, existing code regulates streets, sidewalks, and alleyways in the C1 zone. And it does not regulate parking lots or parklands in those zones. It does not regulate other areas of the city.
Yeah, so.
So like other zones like Harbor, Boulder Park, Artist Point.
Or residential.
Yeah, or what is our alcohol? Is that regulate?
That's what
Is
we're
that
t-
all city land?
That's what
Alcohol?
we're talking about right now. That's
Yeah,
how the alcohol
it's all city-owned property.
is not.
You know,
It's not,
it's
it's
only
just-
limited to those enforcing in those limited zones.
Yeah.
So the blue area
Is not.
is not part of the alcohol.
No,
You
the,
can't drink a beer on the street there.
You can. Well then,
Wait a minute.
okay, the yellow, the maroon, and the blue is enforced,
Yeah.
restricted
Yeah.
alcohol.
Yeah,
Right.
Correct.
yeah.
But not the,
But not the red.
I'm sorry, not the light blue.
Right. or the
PR.
park.
It's the dark navy blue where it says
Mixed use.
MU.
That
Mixed
is,
use.
right, but the light blue is not?
Right.
Okay,
And neither is the park.
that's interesting. I mean, the park, I understand, you have people there.
I mean,
But
I
the-
kind
how
of get the
about the
park
resort
piece, but I think
commercial?
that we should
Yeah, that's,
include the
Ours Point,
Artist Point, yeah. Yeah,
I think that'd be surprising. I was surprised. I didn't realize.
that you could just go down there and crack a beer, yeah, I know.
I didn't know that.
well, interesting, okay.
So like when
So you can watch the fireworks over there and have a beer, but you can't,
Over there.
yeah, you can't across from, yeah,
People didn't know it, and we haven't had any problems, so
that's interesting.
now they know it.
well, because I
Now
think
we're
some
gonna-
people assumed we did.
What?
I think people assumed we did.
I always assumed this was like.
Well, I think most people kind of assumed if it's city-owned property, we have an ordinance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I
It
don't.
covers most of the city, almost most of it. for
No, and I
alcohol.
don't know if that means we want to talk about other streets and residential too? Like, can you walk down the street anywhere then? And, you know, not just downtown, but you're up,
I think then we start getting into difficulty of enforcement.
yeah, I don't know, I
Yeah,
just want to
right.
make sure.
I mean, if you're walking, I mean, you know, that's your friend's house, you're walking,
Yeah.
that just seems
I
like.
get that, but city-owned property is a city street. And we have some streets that are county and state aid, so I mean, I don't know how you start dividing that up.
Right. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I think when we're talking, I think of it also as like the nuisance factor of it, and it really is in the heart of town that we're really concerned about it. Because they're still disturbing the peace, even if you're not drinking, you know, you can still get called in on that. So there are ways, I think, that you could enforce against somebody who's being obnoxious. But again, you know, if somebody's been on the street and they're drinking something you don't know, I mean, that's the thing, they kind of look like soda, so.
Well, we want to make enforcement somewhat workable for our law enforcement people. I
Yeah.
mean, I think Pat might want to have some input, perhaps, on this.
You mean the where of it?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
our sheriff's department, so I
Yeah.
mean,
Yeah.
Now-
No, I can see that. I could see like the difference, but I don't know. It feels really different being here and
Well-
drinking one and being up in the residential area. I just don't see it as being potentially anyway an issue up there. But I don't know. You're right. Maybe Pat would have a different view.
I don't know.
So if we put something, if we kind of narrow this down a little bit, we can certainly get this over to Pat
Yeah.
and get feedback and comment and still have it time to come back. And that would be a second, and that would be
Yeah.
okay, we
For
could
the end of
change.
the month, for our next meeting. before-
Yeah.
Yeah, so that we would be good to go on August 1st. And then August, well, yeah, we don't meet again with that larger county group, which includes Pat till August 10th. But,
I mean, if we did nothing else other than just include cannabis with the same restrictions as we currently do alcohol, right? then
I think
fine,
that would
right?
be.
And then you can always.
So does that
have a
apply to
broader
public-
Discussion.
Does that apply to public parking lots? I mean, not public, but private?
Probably not.
I don't know, I'm just looking at
no,
No, it would private.
alcohol establishments within our city.
Mhm.
They're, I mean,
I don't know how that works. I mean,
exactly.
Can't smoke a cigarette in a restaurant, I don't know how you. can
No.
smoke. Yeah.
Yeah, but can you,
no,
you're
they're,
not supposed to take a drink out of a bar and drink it in the parking lot either.
oh, on their property.
Right.
So if they have a patio, it's okay, but if you took it and walked out to your
Yeah.
car, it's not.
Right, so I
Maybe
mean,
a to-go cup.
that's what I'm saying, so I mean,
And it's already covered by the Indoor Air Act,
right.
so we have to.
So there's some of that. that
There's
we
no
don't
outdoor
worry
air
about.
act.
Right.
There might want to be one.
Well, I don't know.
David? Are you
Outdoor Air
there?
Enhancement Act.
Is he there?
Yes,
What?
I'm there.
Oh.
Mayor Johnson.
I'm sorry, we have
Oh,
this, we have
let's see,
the
I
map
gotta-
up on the screen, so.
Just a second here.
Do you know,
There we go.
do you want to ask that again, Craig? Did you hear what Craig was talking about with, like?
Well, we're just trying to
bars?
follow guidelines that alcohol kind of follows, and I don't know how, if you're a bar with your own parking lot, you're not supposed to take a drink out of the bar and drink it in the parking lot, even though it's your private land.
Yeah, the current alcohol ordinance that is sort of copied some of the language into the cannabis ordinance, you know, does state any parking lot adjacent to public streets.
Okay.
And so that's under chapter 113. It does, you know, the new statute does leave open kind of the definition of public place for sort of municipalities, as long as it's not, those three categories you looked at before. So we can look into that, but, I think from the main areas, we'll probably need some direction on where exactly you're trying to have maybe both of these apply, if you want them to be the same, your open container and the cannabis use. And I will add, the new statute specifically addresses cannabis flower, cannabis products, lower potency hemp edibles, and hemp-derived consumer products, which is a little bit confusing, as the products that are currently in use and legal to be sold are the sort of edible cannabinoid products. So we'd have to look into adding those to it, essentially.
Because they're now restricted to consumption only in on-site, only with someone who has a liquor license. Is my understanding. That was a change. So you can't go to the co-op and eat your lunch and crack open a cold
THC drink.
beverage anymore. They can only do that at a licensed liquor on-sale liquor operation.
Gotcha.
But that said, if our goal is to keep this as clean and easy as possible for the sheriff, then, as Craig's pointing out, do we have some issues around a parking lot scenario?
You may, I'd have to look into how these kind of overlap. I mean, as it is currently, as you stated, this, the draft I was given and worked off of included sort of these narrow districts that the alcohol one currently applies to. So I might have to talk to staff a little bit to figure out, what we're kind of looking at within these districts. And then, again, copying some of that language from the alcohol ordinance.
Okay.
And also, we give permits out, like we just did tonight, temporary liquor licenses.
Right.
But that's what I was saying, that's the next step. We have to
Right.
decide if we want to do that with cannabis, and
Right.
we haven't yet.
Right.
So right
So right
now,
now-
the answer would be no, because we don't.
We don't have it right now, but
Yeah.
August 1st,
So somebody would have to apply, and at this point, unless we get, we wouldn't be able to hit it anyways, because we wouldn't have two readings.
No.
So the answer would be for right now, it would be no, just by default, because we haven't incorporated it into our,
Yeah.
so no
So,
one would be given permission to have an event right now.
And Mayor and Council, if I may, and so the cannabis event organization, like under 342, that new statute's coming in. So that'll be licensed. I mean, I think they get sort of their license from the Office of Cannabis Management. So that addresses more so the sort of like adult use cannabis that's coming in. And so that's, not necessarily up and running yet.
But the event one is, right? I gotta go back up to my. It's my understanding that the event ones we could do that now, that that's not the same as the licensing for sales. Or are we wrong on that one? You can let us know later, because there's no action we're taking right now.
Well, so the cannabis event organizer license is under the same category as cannabis businesses.
Okay.
So, my reading here is that should be licensed by the Office of Cannabis Management. I'm not sure what event, I think you were talking about event paddle earlier. What they would sell, since they obviously wouldn't be licensed to sell any, the adult use. So what they would be selling are the edible cannabinoid products that are the sort of minimum under 151.72. I am not familiar with what the event was, but I don't believe that it should be licensed under the new statute yet.
Okay. Oh, I'm sorry, I see what you were saying. I thought these events included all items, but possibly not. You're saying just the main.
Yeah, as of yet, the Office of Cannabis Management isn't handing out a license for the full adult use cannabis, whether it's an event or any of these cannabis businesses.
Right.
So it wouldn't have been under that.
Okay.
What they applied for or how they're doing that event, I wouldn't be familiar with, but.
Well, Bent Paddle got that in on June 30th, and it was just their already edibles. But what I had read from coming to the League of Minnesota Cities was that was one of the things we needed to look at now, because we would be authorizing their permits or licenses now for that it wasn't something that would not be in effect until the full licensing came in. But that's good to know. We can just keep mulling that one over then.
Okay.
But for this tonight, then what you're suggesting is we just leave the area that's currently covered? Is that what you thought, Ben?
Well,
I was thinking we should add the,
Add the park? Okay. I'm just
I
trying
mean,
to,
not the rec park, but
yeah.
right here, I think makes
Yeah.
sense.
I kind of assumed that was already part of
Yeah,
the
and since
non-use
isn't
alcohol.
that the same zone? No, it's not the same zone.
it's what is it? It's the,
Which one,
The
the rec park?
The rec park and the.
so the rec park's.
They're like,
Protected resources?
Oh, that one. Protected resources, there you go. So, yeah, that, if we added that in, to my mind, that would look correct.
Cleans up downtown, yeah.
Because it would just be the,
Well, I think law enforcement probably is already thinking that's covered, but they don't know it.
Right.
That it's not. Because,
Well-
Right.
well, and it would make it easier. I mean, what's the point of like, okay, I'm in the corner there by Joins's, and now I can just walk across the street and then you can leave me alone. I mean, it's kind of
yeah,
ridiculous,
that kind of
right?
defeats,
Should be
because really,
consistent.
more often than not, it's going to be enforcement because something else is happening, so.
Mhm. Yeah.
That's not helpful if they can walk across the way and.
avoid it.
So what, let's see, am I missing? Boulder, oh, Artist Point.
Yeah.
You want to,
Well, that's part of that.
That's part of the
Y-
protected resources.
Yep.
oh, okay, so that's within, is summing that one all up. Okay, I just want to make
Yeah,
sure
so
we're
if
not
we added
missing
that
anything
to-
of what we're considering then. Can we see the map again,
Yeah, just.
Patrick? Thanks, David, this is super helpful, I'm glad you're here tonight. All right.
Yeah.
Oh, so the
So my
PR.
thought is, yeah,
protected
if we add
resources,
that,
got it.
it kind of makes it all contiguous. It doesn't include this, doesn't include that, but
So,
I feel like that's, so what?
So protected, that's all the way up the shore?
no, it's the
No,
blue.
It's up like to the parking lot.
Oh, I see what you
No, it
mean.
is. All the way,
Covers the Coast Guard.
covers all the
You
way up
mean
the East Bay.
To the
all way-
right, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
all the way up alongside the
To the condos.
residential R1 on the Old Shore Road.
Oh, it goes all the way
So
up.
yeah.
this is a little part you mean, right?
Oh.
Yeah,
Yeah, I didn't see
The
that.
whole
at first.
shoreline.
Where,
yeah, I don't know if we want
that's
to do
not,
that.
wow.
So then maybe we do.
I
need
hear
to
what you're
go-
saying.
Well, we could just specify artists.
Yeah, maybe not,
Yeah.
How about the
Yeah.
East Harbor though? Do we need to specify? Because, you're kind of,
I think that
we just-
protective resources is that 50-foot setback from high water, right? Like, I think that's probably that 50-foot band that works all the way around the harbor, all
Right.
up and down the coastal.
yeah.
up
So-
there, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
all-
So we have to-
Everywhere, all the way south of the park, the rec park, the
Yeah.
whole.
Whole
So
bay.
we wouldn't use this reference then?
No,
We'd have to be
we'd
more
have to say-
specific.
You can't use that
Yeah.
reference.
Right?
Right. We'll
So
have-
go back to that, but then we
So we'll
should
have to say
probably add
Artist
the
Point.
East Harbor then, as a question. Because you're over here and then you walk over here? Is there any
it's-
difference in logic wise?
I don't know, I mean, it makes sense, is it a problem now? Like,
It's not a problem now,
No.
but it's just, is
Like
the
if people-
community
Maybe
gonna
that's why
have
they
a
didn't add
problem?
it in the first
Is the
place.
community gonna have a problem with it if somebody's out there in public
Yeah.
walking around smoking a joint when you can't, well, I guess right now you can drink too, but I mean,
Right.
drinking is not a problem. I'm just wondering, is cannabis going to be a problem?
So maybe
In that
we
area.
don't add in protected resources.
Right.
Maybe that's why they never had it added in the first place.
Right.
Yeah, we'd have to narrow it, we'd have to go back to listing.
And I think that, that would be,
I think that's the problem too, is, you know, like, in theory, that smell alone could,
That's my concern, is the annoyance of it, that it is to some other people, so.
Right. You want this to go over as well as possible and work for everyone, and that's what and I just think our timing couldn't have been even more wonderful, that we pick such a huge weekend, and then it ties with that to get things off and running. How,
Well, the adult use, when is that?
August 1st.
Okay.
David?
Yes,
Well,
thank you, Mayor.
guess we're having a party. Somebody is.
So,
down at Artist
when we
Point.
look at that zoning map,
Parking lot.
can we list a section specifically? Like, we don't want to do that
But-
PR zone. We want, within it, we have certain.
But here's the problem,
Okay.
because then if that whole East, I mean, I think it's gonna be really hard to make it clear what we're talking about.
That's what I'm asking, that's what I'm trying to get, like, how
Right.
hard or how
Okay,
can,
all
how
right.
does a person list that out?
Well, the PR zone is overlapping some of the zones that we do not allow alcohol right now,
Right.
right?
It's that whole like.
It's
like-
covering, it's like covering the beach, but areas inside that beach area are restricted for alcohol use right now.
But like Ben said, we don't want to go way over
No.
on either side either, so how do we keep it contained
Mm-hmm.
to like the Boulder Park and Harbor Park or whatever we decide? Can we list it verbally
Right.
that way?
But
How
if-
do you define it?
You can,
Right, but then if we don't include, then people down, I don't know, I think it'll,
well, you're looking at.
Well, here's the
the-
thing, like, is it, is it a problem if people are smoking or having a beer on the beach, right? Or anywhere?
I know, that's why I'm thinking like,
I don't
maybe
think
we
that's
don't
not
go
a
after
problem.
it because it's, if
And
it's a
then the other part
problem.
is just a parking lot, right?
Right.
That's what we're talking about, that's the PR. Right.
So maybe we
Part of it, yeah.
should just not, just go with what it was and just add in the.
Well, I'm just looking, the other part of it is, it's a public space. I mean,
But you have people
people
with
walk
their-
out to Artist Point, they walk out to Lighthouse. In my mind, that's a public space, so how do we do public space now for alcohol? We regulate it in certain areas within our community.
Sure.
In
But
public
not
spaces.
those.
I've seen lots of people down there, hanging out and having a picnic and
Right.
having a bottle of wine on
Yeah.
the beach, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
And-
no, I'm just saying.
We don't want to enforce on that.
Yeah.
To me, seems like that's a really great idea, and a great setting for that, so.
Sure. And then you think about people with their boats and hanging out there and
Right.
whatever, you know. I don't know, I feel like we can just leave it be.
It's also not super dense, right? Like in that, like the density is here, and it is inside of our
Right.
city limits from mixed use to, to the downtown.
Well, I think what we do then is we leave it, and maybe if it becomes a nuisance or a problem, then we have to address it.
Yeah, maybe get some background on why it was left out.
Right,
You know.
in the
So,
first place.
Right.
And then talk to law enforcement if they even know that it's left out.
Yeah.
I don't know, maybe they do, I don't know.
so we draft this with the existing physical as it is.
Yep.
We're just gonna add in these items. And then alcohol would, the other question, then, we don't have to, but the other question is, are we okay with making alcohol a petty misdemeanor as well, so they're just the same?
What is it now?
It's a misdemeanor versus a petty misdemeanor. And the state is allowing cannabis to be set as a petty misdemeanor. So just, this is more like making it easier for law enforcement.
Right.
Yeah.
But that, but it's up to us.
See, now alcohol has more of a penalty than,
Yeah.
I mean, personally, I would be fine with that, but what do you guys think?
I think be consistent with it. It seems simple. I mean, petty misdemeanor's fine
Okay.
for alcohol,
All right, so,
Yeah,
I think.
yes?
yeah, thank you, council. Do you have the draft ordinance in front of you?
Yeah.
Well, parts of it, the way you put it together was not,
we have,
my question was gonna be if we kept the zones the same and we were just adding in cannabis, can we make this under just one ordinance all the same? I mean, because right now we'll end up with two. I mean, if we're gonna make them both a petty misdemeanor,
Well, do we have the authority to do that is a question as well. Can't we just decide that alcohol is petty misdemeanor versus, okay.
yeah, these are all our choices. That's why the way, I think the way Mike kind of wrote it up is
option three
confusing,
is
'cause
written, option 3 is written that way.
it's just sort of weird, because we have the choice to do whatever on any of this, so.
Okay.
So if I, Mayor, Council, so you have already, the obviously your intoxicating liquors chapter, where you have this provision about, the open container. So the choice I made was to leave that there and then create a sort of, the cannabis corollary under the separate, kind of miscellaneous, I think it is, chapter. This, for a couple of reasons, I think the cannabis is going to be, the conservative approach on cannabis was to use a lot of the language from the state statute to make sure you're not looking at these places they wanted specifically exempted, because they weren't matching one-to-one, it kept it in a separate offense. The other thing that is just sort of looking to the future is, as these businesses come about, I don't know what the city's position is on any of the potential regulations cities are allowed to have. Once the Office of Cannabis Management has model ordinances, if there'll be potentially a cannabis chapter or something for this to go under. Now, of course, if you'd like them both in the same
okay.
chapter,
I see.
it wouldn't make sense to put cannabis under the intoxicating liquors chapter, obviously, as it currently is. The other option that was, I think that it was originally drafted that they were both put under the sort of sidewalks, public spaces chapter of your code, which to me didn't make sense as for this type of restriction, but if the council prefer them to be put together, we can find a place for that.
Nope, that's fine,
No.
that makes sense,
I mean,
because
if
you're right,
they're-
there'll be more stuff coming in, so that's fine.
That will be focused on that specifically. Yeah, I get that.
Okay, so we're good with petty misdemeanor for both? We'll keep the zones,
We don't have to do that now, though. I mean, if we're gonna.
No, you could keep the penalties,
We
if
could
you're gonna have a
leave the penalty
cannabis part and an alcohol part, we could keep the alcohol part the way it is.
Yeah,
We
so
can-
no
I-
change to that.
I know what you're saying, though, if you want to keep enforcement.
I just
But-
wanted to keep
but then
it
But
easy,
that
again,
won't
you
change the
gotta-
enforcement, it's just the punishment, right?
I guess, I don't know.
Oh, well,
Well, yeah, but you
Yeah.
gotta, yeah,
isn't that
there's
right?
different degrees of, I guess, sobriety that a deputy may or may not want to deal with, you know what I'm saying?
Mm.
So maybe in some instances, maybe the 90 days in jail or the $1,000 fine is appropriate, you know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
In some instances, it's not. So I mean, I'm just wondering, do you want to decrease that penalty? Or keep it the way it has always been? I mean, that's a question you gotta ask, I guess.
I think I would rather not mess with what has been and just deal with the thing that is new and use what we've learned from regulating liquor and all that, and just have it be its own standalone thing with its own penalty and go from there.
Ben, what do you think for the petty or no petty?
I didn't actually know there was a difference.
I didn't think you had to read that out.
There's the pretty and not pretty.
Well, it'd be, you could, you know, you could do whatever. I mean, you could do, reduce the alcohol, or we can put the cannabis at misdemeanor too, right?
We
It doesn't-
can't, that's the one thing we can't do.
We can't go
We're only
That has to
authorized-
be.
Yeah, the state gave us permission to do a petty misdemeanor. The only option we would have would be to reduce alcohol down if we wanted to. I guess I always think like the person being charged, and because then we're almost making a statement about them, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Oh, I see what you're saying.
to the
But we don't
person
have any
using-
choice in that,
Make a
like,
value judgment on which is, right, yeah, I see that, yeah.
but we don't have a choice. It's not like we could make the, you know.
No, but we
the
could make one
cannabis.
lesser.
But we could make,
One
right, you're
lesser,
right.
yeah.
That's true.
That's the only thing I
Um,
think about.
Yeah, I guess, I was just thinking conservatively, like, don't change it, but, you know, I'd be, if the council is in that direction, I'm totally fine with that.
Well, and the other thing is if we just get something tonight,
Sure.
then we have, you know, you guys can ponder this and then
You'd have
the
a
next
draft
meeting.
anyway,
Because
sure.
we'll have a
we
second
can
reading.
edit it.
Okay.
But at
I'll
least
think
we've
about
got it fine tuned, I think, pretty good and agreed that we're going to.
Mm-hmm.
How's that
Yeah,
sound?
yep.
Kind of, because
Yep.
it is good to kind of, you know, the old sleep on it over. Something might pop, you
Mhm.
know, and you have a couple days to think about it. And maybe that'll also, about location and stuff too.
Yeah.
So, all right.
It-
Hmm?
And Mayor and Council, may I just ask?
Hmm?
So currently, the changes made on the sort of second page here to your alcohol ordinance includes, is the addition here of public park or open space, in addition to the section making it a petty misdemeanor. You know, I've heard you say keep it the same a couple of times, so I just want to know if you'd like, you know, to amend this in some way or you know, provide some direction that way.
Right, yeah, so we're okay with the zoning without changing that, right?
Yep.
The only difference we're thinking potentially now is the penalty. So would you like to leave them separate for now and think about it? Or would we like to start off with making them the same with still the thought of switching them back? I don't care, whichever way.
Let's make them the same, unless somebody feels very strongly here that alcohol consumption needs to be punished by misdemeanor, then let's go petty misdemeanor.
Yep.
Okay.
Fair enough.
Okay. Greg, are you okay with that?
Yeah. Okay.
Because we can start, you know, we'll think about it. We can switch any of this again before we sign off completely. Am I
Okay.
missing one thing, David? One more thing we need for tonight? I feel like there were 3 things. Why do I feel that way? Maybe we're.
What things in the adult use of cannabis, what areas are listed in the state statute that's coming out that's restricted use? Like playgrounds, so many feet from a school, I mean, is there anything like that written in that? I don't know, so I'm just
Yeah.
asking that question, because
Yeah, there is.
we have city-owned,
Because there'll be,
we
yeah.
have
and
city-owned
that's-
playgrounds, we have city-owned,
There is.
I mean, I'm just wondering.
And I think that was, my thought is that we'll be adding those in to this ordinance, like we'll add that in and then add that in as things come along.
I don't know. There
No,
must have-
there is. I don't remember. I've got the full FAQs, but I don't think I put that in that PowerPoint because it was sort of beyond what we were talking about that night. But yeah, there's school and public parks where use by children, does that sound right? I can't remember, I'd have to look at it.
Yeah, that sounds right. But, mhm.
Is restriction, I think there's 3 main things, but you're right, they do cover
Well,
that already.
I know, but I'm just saying, when you talk about that PR zone that goes up the beach and all the way through there.
So you're
that's-
saying that might already
That's
be.
public areas that are used by children, so I'm just, it might already be.
Well, it's primarily, I mean, it's not general.
No, I know, but I'm just.
It has to be like a specific.
That's why I'm asking. if there
Yeah.
are specifics
It's-
already.
yeah,
That may
it's-
help us already guide our way to
I see what you're
a
saying.
formula here,
Sure.
So, it,
Well,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Excuse me, thank you. I was gonna say, the statute separates different kinds of uses in different places a little bit. As you discussed, the Indoor Clean Air Act
Yeah.
is going to apply to smoking and vaping. This gives sort of local, the current statute that we're kind of discussing gives local control to establish a petty misdemeanor for public places, except for those 3 things. In terms of specific, I don't believe the statute has a lot of specifics related to sort of public use otherwise.
Okay.
I'm trying to,
There are local controls that can go in, especially related to where businesses can be located. But, I have to look more into it if you're looking at whether it addresses sort of school zones for use already.
I think you're right.
My understanding of this was that it left sort of public use pretty open.
You're absolutely right. So it's operation of a business 1,000 feet from a school, 500 feet from a daycare, residential treatment facility, there we go, or attraction within a public park.
That would be a playground or.
Yeah, but this is a business setup,
But
right?
this is
So
That's a-
business,
a business.
like he's saying.
Oh, this is a business that
Yeah.
sells.
Not
Okay.
you
Casual.
usual.
All right.
Yeah.
Whatever. Yeah.
And maybe that's
Those
something.
are where you can put the controls in.
Yeah.
And when we meet in August, it would be nice to kind of do some of this county-wide. I'm sure we'll talk about
Yeah.
some of that too. Because, you've got other schools, other parts around the county, and
Yep.
just try to make it easy for Pat and his group. All right, so back again, same location.
Mm-hmm.
We'll keep it, we'll switch it both to petty misdemeanor.
Yep.
It's
Is
good.
that clear as mud now,
Hmm.
David?
There.
That's about all we can do right now, I think.
I mean, what I'm hearing a lot is what we have drafted here at the moment.
Right.
Okay.
In this, I did separate it, but we kept the same sort of zoning thing under the cannabis products. The same zoning, district specifically, and then city-owned, street, sidewalk, alley, parking lot, park, or open space. Is that sort of what I'm hearing? At
Yeah.
the moment it
Yep.
is.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, and, so, as this is written right now, I mean, this is addressing, because that's what the statute addresses, as I said, cannabis flower, cannabis products, lower potency hemp edibles, and hemp-derived consumer products. So those do not include the current edible cannabinoid products, which in the future will be sort of regulated as the lower potency hemp edibles. Because that's what the state statute had authorized. I think, the big August 1st deadline in terms of the adult use cannabis, I think is mostly going to be cannabis flower, because that's when people, I think, can begin sort of growing their own. The businesses won't be available yet.
Mhm.
So just wanted to note that that's kind of, that's kind of what the August 1st deadline, especially for that sort of uses.
Well,
Okay.
just so you know, we have our small town annual celebration that very first weekend. So we anticipate, or I do at least, that when everyone comes home from their class reunion and is out for a fun time, we'd like to make it easy for our sheriff. Plus, I just don't want this to go awry for other people and set it on a wrong, bad note. Try to know that it's not a free-for-all and you have to be respectful of other people. Because it's one thing if you have quietly a wine in your cooler bottle, but it's different if you're out publicly, just the smell alone might be annoying to somebody.
Yeah.
And just try to remember everyone wants to have a good time and not, just
Right.
let it go bad. That's all.
And so, may I clarify that then the main concern here is probably the cannabis flower, the sort of using and smoking, I guess, essentially.
In general, I don't want to get, that's what I anticipate would be most noticed, but all of it should be included. I'm not suggesting we remove anything out of this language, if that's what you mean.
Okay.
I'm just assuming that would catch someone's nose or more than.
Well, I think, when you want to get back to Artist Point in that area, I think whoever, who, is this Mike's idea here? Okay, well, he did kind of, I don't think he was like looking at that area as a whole zone, like we kind of looked at it on that map.
Right.
He did specify, do you want to regulate use in other zones like Harbor and Boulder Park and Artist Point and city-owned property?
Yeah, very specifically.
Very specific. And that's something I think that, if we may want to look at.
Well, that's why I was asking, like, how can we do that? If we want to be specific, how
Yeah.
do we state that? As opposed to just a zone, how do we say Harbor Park or Artist Point? Well, how do you put that in
Well,
your ordinances? I just wondered
But,
how you list it. I'm sure,
But isn't that, God, isn't that covered by what we're saying here? Because it's saying parking lot, I mean, that's basically a parking lot up there, right? And any public park, that would be a good chunk of the rest of that space, or open space.
I'm sorry, I thought you didn't put that in.
Well,
Open park.
no person shall lawfully use or consume, a public place.
I mean, it is-
Multi-district zone of the city, including but not limited to the city-owned street, sidewalk, alley, parking lot, park, or open space. I mean, it kind of covers.
so I think it might,
Oh,
in that way, not get into the, protected resources.
Right.
But still
Okay.
gather or cover enough of the areas that,
Right.
I apologize, I see what you're saying. I
Yeah.
guess that's, he underlined it, or in any public park or other space. All right, so then, do you want it in there, or don't you want it in
This?
I think
This
it's
is,
good.
Should-
I
I think it works,
I think
right?
it's
Isn't that what
fine.
you're saying?
there? Okay.
Craig?
Yeah.
All right,
Yeah.
just want to make sure
yeah.
that I'm not confusing everybody.
No, I'm just trying to make it easy for enforcement, I guess.
Okay.
That's-
So then we're okay with it as it is, David, thank you.
After all that, perfect, good job.
Thank you.
I don't want to go on the track one.
He's probably just like leaning down.
So we're good for now. We need to approve then this ordinance as is with our second reading and conversation, so,
2023-4, yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
Would anyone like to make a motion?
I would make that motion.
Anyone?
Second.
Thank you. Any further discussion?
Nope.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you all very much. Council and staff reports. Who would like to go first?
I got nothing, so.
Okay. Ben?
Like Ben does.
We had planning and zoning, it was very short. We had a couple absentee. We began talking about solid waste. But we struggled with, we need more direction. We need more direction as far as what, I think, Tracy, you might have brought it up. What specifically were you wanting? Because we went to like mandatory garbage for residents. We talked about a lot of different things.
Okay, got it.
And so I think we need more direction.
Got
Yeah.
it. Yep, okay.
So,
Mike did mention that a little bit, but I get it. Okay.
so, I mean, if it's just, we're talking about enclosures and dumpsters and who needs a dumpster and who doesn't, that's fine. That's what we need to look at then.
Okay.
Other than that, nothing. We did set another date with the North House
Hmm?
to go over the relationship conversation again. I think that was August 21st or 22nd or something like that. So it's out there ways, which is good because we have lots of stuff in the interim.
Yeah, it's a busy time.
That's it.
Craig?
We had a park board meeting. Is that yesterday? Guess so. Yeah, HKGI put together the data from the open question.
Yeah.
That was posted for a month. Anyway, they put the data together and they kind of formulated a bunch of questions, answers, who answered what to what questions, and it was kind of interesting. So what their next move is to put together at least two options. I'm looking forward for the park in the future. They're going to have two different scenarios of how we could do things differently in the park. That the park board will look at and then ultimately bring before to the city council to look at. I don't know, let's see, what else can I say about that? I'm not gonna go through all the questions and answers, but you're welcome to watch the
didn't we
meeting and
get
It was good.
you'll pick up on the things. And there's a lot of different things that we discussed. Some things off the 2009 master plan, and maybe some of the stuff is gonna get pushed over onto this master plan. Now that we know certain things that were put on the 2009 one we can't do because of, parking lots and stuff like that, but at least it gives us a better idea which way to push this, I guess. There are some unknowns yet because, there are certain groups of people that need to be contacted, that would have an impact on what the park could look like. Anyway, the other part of the park board meeting then was talking about the rec park and the business so far this year. As far as numbers, financial numbers, I mean, we're up about 10% in June, and we're up about 12% year-to-date on the park, which is kind of nice to see. We know there's been a lot of use at the park and a lot of traffic in the community. So it's kind of nice to see that increase, I guess. It's from a financial standpoint, but there's also people that say maybe that's not so good because, there's too many people or too many of this and too many of that. So it's kind of a fine balancing act that we're trying to do with our public space, anyway. The boat launch is not quite complete with the kayak changing areas, but they did get the DNR did get the two new docks installed down there now. There's a 30-foot and a 40-foot. 30 and 50. 50's on the far side, the 30's on the park side. I just went and looked at them today. They're nice docks, yeah. So you can launch easier to launch a little bigger boat, like if you have a 30-foot boat on a trailer. Those other docks are kind of short for doing that. So that's done. The timber frame pavilion that was built in the marina, down by the boats in the marina, that we bought from the North House and they built for us, has been stained, and there is a new steel or tin roof, a roof that's on it, a steel roof. So that's finished and it looks really nice. Let's see, what else can I say? The community connection building site there, I see the forms are put in, and as you see them filling those in, I think you're going to start seeing more. The steps, that part of the concrete work has to be done, and the slab has to be poured. But once that gets done, then you'll see the other parts come together in August, as far as the pavilion, the woodwork and the metal work.
Yeah.
Oh, and then we also, the other part of thing that we did talk about at the meeting was the Cook County Creative Economy Collaborative. They met with the George Morrison family, and I think we'll be bringing this
this will probably be on the city council next time, I think, but, an honorarium fee paid to the family. I think we kind of approved a $7,500 fee that we paid to them, to the family. And then that will be something that needs city approval, city council approval. So that was part of using his artwork on that. And also having a plaque that's going to describe and, explain all of that at that particular area. And that'll be a different type of, because we always saw plans of a, what were they, those boards that they're gonna, the three.
Oh, yeah.
The talking boards, there's 3 of them that's gonna be placed throughout the city. One of them, I always saw pictures of it right in front of that, so I always thought that was gonna be part of that, but that's not. That's gonna be put somewhere else, so we're gonna have a different.
Oh, okay.
A different plaque,
Okay.
a different,
Kiosks.
a different type of,
Yeah.
a different
Yeah.
type of kiosk just for that viewing area.
Okay.
So that's about all I have here. I guess that's everything.
I asked
No
Patrick.
PUC?
No. There was a PUC meeting, but I forgot about this. You never called me either, so. Anyway, that
Patrick.
That I got
Oh,
taken
man.
care of. Yeah, yeah, bad Craig. Anyway, I'll try not to do that again. I'm surprised they had a meeting because usually there's not a quorum. I have to be there.
I asked Patrick today just for the survey results, and it looks like there were a total of 412 that did that master park plan. And
That's what I saw. Okay.
about 200, roughly 220, so a little over half were either a county or city resident. So that's good. And then seasonal also residents of Grand Marais added up quite a bit. So, Patrick, how's Fifth Street going?
I got my notes here. Contractors have begun the subcut of the road, so they're that means removing the old fill and adding more evenly graded material to make the road better. I don't really. So that's going to be happening over the next week, and that means that there'll be a lot of trucks coming and going full of fill and taking out old fill, but they're going to be using side roads. So
Right in front of my house, you mean? just
yeah, they
that side.
apologize. They're apologizing for that excess traffic.
Very crazy.
Breaking.
Oh my God, it's been insane. I've been watching them like, because we got Maria's here, or next door we have a daycare, and the people are trying to come in, and the trucks are trying to go out.
And then next Monday, they're gonna start doing curb and gutter, sidewalk, and aprons between Highway 61 and 2nd Street.
Okay.
There's some more details about water mains and stuff and the stormwater system in the courthouse, but I figured I'd just leave that for the update, and maybe that'll drive people to sign up for it. And it's not something that's gonna really affect anyone's day-to-day life over the next few weeks, so. Those are, I didn't mention that, because of the aprons and the sidewalk and the curb and gutter, they're going to be asking next week through maybe the end of the week, potentially halfway through the middle of the following week, anyone who lives between Highway 61 and 2nd Street to park on the side streets and not be there, because they could come at a moment's notice and block you in or block you out, and just,
So all along Fifth, though.
yeah,
Okay.
there'll be potential limited access while they're putting in the concrete.
Makes sense.
Thank you.
Cool.
Yep.
I just, doing my good for broadcasting, the counties Public Health Department is having a meeting tomorrow afternoon from 1 to 4 o'clock at the community center. It's a public input meeting. Everyone is welcome. There's also a virtual option, and you can contact Grace Grenager, or you can go to the county's website. They have a page for it. But this is their work to plan, their work and funding for the next 5 years for the county's public health department. And they're looking for public input. So I'm just letting everyone know. You're more than welcome to attend, and at other times I think they'll take feedback as well at any time, Grace said. And last week I went to a meeting for childcare at higher ed. Scraba came for that, and so did Grant Hochschild and State Senator Aaron Murphy. Packed house. They had a meal as well. I'm not trying to say that they came because there was food, but they got lots of families there, and a lot of conversation talking about everyone's own experiences locally, plus in just awesome video done from other daycares of the state, just outlining the issues and how difficult it is to run a daycare. And what they would really prefer is that a lot of these provided were treated like teachers and other professionals as well. Thinking of, no benefits, whatever, low pay. We all know the drill. It's been the same for many years. But it was a very good meeting, well attended, and there. I think that is it then. I have nothing else.
Well, that's perfect. It's 7:25, so it must be adjourned.
Nailed it.
8:20.
Boom.
Oh, yeah. Thanks, you guys.